back to Rain, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of Rain, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have two guests that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is building the right team. When starting as an entrepreneur, one of the most crucial decisions you'll make is building your team. Here are 5 tips to build a badass business team. Number 1, vision and values alignment. Seek individuals who resonate with your vision and share your core values. Number 2, skills and experience. Prioritize candidates with the necessary expertise and relevant experience for your venture. Number 3, passion and commitment. Look for team members who are genuinely passionate about your mission, as they'll be more dedicated to driving its success. Number 4, diversity. Embrace diversity in skills, backgrounds, and perspectives to foster innovation and creativity within your team. Number 5, culture fit. Focus on building a culture of collaboration, trust, and mutual respect to ensure cohesive and supportive work environment. So remember, your team is the foundation of your business. Invest time and effort into assembling the right group of individuals who will help you achieve your entrepreneurial goals. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Melissa and Eric Broughton. Melissa and Eric are living their passion for helping small business owners and gain financial clarity in their business through their company, Busy Bee Advisors. With more than 20 years of combined bookkeeping and tax experience, Melissa and Eric are a single source for all your accounting and tax services. This badass duo also hosts a popular podcast, The Real Buzz, designed with small business owners in mind who are serious about reducing their tax liability. I'm ready to geek out over some bookkeeping and tax topics, so let's get this party started. Welcome, Melissa and Eric Broughton.
Hi, Jen.
We are definitely going to geek out. We've been talking for like 2 hours already before we even hit record. Right? So you two, thank you so much for being here. I'm on the other side of the country right now in Raleigh, North Carolina. Y'all are calling in from California. So tell us how this whole connection of brain power between the two of you started this Busy Bee company. Give us a little background.
So it's kind of funny, actually. I started the firm originally in 2017. We really want to go deep. I had a horrible accident. I went out for a run and I fell and I literally broke my face and I shattered thank God we had dental insurance. I shattered everything except for my top 4 on the front, in the front, and top and bottom 4 of my teeth. So we joke that we definitely bought our dentist second home and boat at the very least. But it gave me time in the recovery process to kind of envision what I really wanted to do. I was in a transitional period. Our oldest was just about to graduate from high school, or I think he was a year away from graduating from high school. And I really felt like working in corporate America, I was working 60-hour weeks and making other people lots of money, but I wasn't finding fulfillment. And I felt that there was a need for good service to small businesses. And so I after, my face recovered and I could actually talk to people and not look like a crackhead, that I started the firm at our dining room table, and a month after I started, we were full time. Eric was still working as a nurse. I hired my first staff member, a month after we started, and we just kept seeing growth month after month. Right before COVID, so I think it was November, we had this conversation where we're out to dinner with friends, and these particular friends always invited us to go out for New Year's, and we could never go because he was either on shift New Year's Eve or on shift New Year's Day. I mean, nobody wants to go out New Year's Eve when they've got to clock in at the hospital at 5:00 in the morning, right? So I just looked at him and I'm like, you should quit and you should come to work with me and let's see what we can do. And he said yes. And I was really like, it was the excited, surprised, and terrified feeling all at once.
It's almost like she's talking about it was like a wedding proposal or something of that nature.
It's not like a wedding proposal. This feels, I don't know, this feels deeper than being married to you in some ways. So that was right before COVID. He gave notice, left, went back to school, and that's when everything started to shut down. So he would have been front line with all of this stuff. And he was safe tucked away in our office with myself and all of the, he was in the land of women. That was for sure at the time. So we just continued to build the firm, and he decided that tax would be what he wanted to focus on. So I focus mostly on the accounting side of things, and he focuses with his team on the tax side of things. But really what our vision was we wanted to provide small business owners with the same tax advantages and strategies that you see, only reserved for the wealthy.
Yes.
And there's a lot of strong feelings around it. There was a meme that somebody sent to me yesterday, and it had and I don't want to go political at all, but it had a meme of a certain president, and it was he and his wife, and then their son was sitting on like a lion, and it was, it said paid only $750 in taxes, and then it shows this poor working doctor who's all like in her scrubs and looks exhausted, paid $12,000 in taxes, and I think that there could be a whole show just around that, but it's really about education. And as tax professionals, of course, we can choose how much education we want to have. And I'll let Eric kind of get into his opinions about this. But most people who are just your regular average, everyday Joe or Jane, they wait until the end of the year, and then they turn over what they've decided are their financials to their tax person. Their tax person enters the information into boxes, says, okay, thanks, have a nice day, and their returns are filed. And that's how they end up paying $12,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 in taxes. And it's just not how it should be. And so we're kind of on a mission to, we want to be disruptors. We want to change some stuff. And, I think my awesome husband and partner is on a mission to show change by the length of his beard, to be the rebel.
I can't even see the bottom of it on the screen. I mean, it's like never ending.
It's long. Yes. So we're not your typical tax preparers, but we are definitely on a passionate mission to help level the playing field.
Well, Melissa, you're in good company because I have face planted not once but twice. We moved recently to downtown Raleigh about 2 years ago, and we bought scooters because I was like, I'm going to be, I want the completely lit up so it's totally safe. Well, drinking and scootering does not blend with this chick right here. Not once, but twice. And once it was right before I was going to Jamaica on a business trip, and I had to wake up an hour early, hungover, cake on the makeup, and I can never submerge in all those beautiful waters out there in Jamaica because then, my face would fall off. But anyway, so you are in good company. It's happened. But anyway, this is not about our faces. So
virtual high five for the face plants.
Exactly. So I like how you call them the order takers, is when, people regularly do their taxes and pass them off to the bookkeeper, and then the tax person puts it all in there, and you say that it's rigged. So I'm going to direct this towards Eric. What are some kind of basic loopholes that real estate investors, a lot of times real estate agents, that there are just little things you're like, I wish we could just tell this to everyone, and where they can be, saving in their taxes as well. So do you have any loopholes or any secret sauce you want to share with us, Eric?
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. I think one of the things I kind of want to quickly go and jump back towards is that we collectively, me and Melissa, don't have a problem with other tax professionals fulfilling the role as an order taker. If I go to my favorite burger joint and I order my burger, I want my burger as I would expect it to come to me. So there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you want to maybe work with someone that's going to customize something for you, maybe surprise you, with a unique burger of sorts. So when working with clients, especially really, right? I know, geez Louise. Especially with those that operate either in construction or in the real estate world. I mean, I really want them to first and foremost, they need to nail down the basics, right? They need to know that they got to have, separate accounts for their business. Okay, check. They got to know all expenditures need to go through those accounts. Okay, check, right? If it's something that you're paying for personally, but it's being used for business, then why is the business not paying for it?
Okay.
Because one of the things you can look at from this perspective, I know me personally, I could set my cell phone down on the kitchen table and walk away from it for a couple of days and I'll survive. I've done it. I'll go camping, right? But your business can't survive without that cell phone. Right. That's the difference. That's the difference between whether or not to kind of, in my opinion, to view whether or not it is a business or a personal expense. Now, is there a percentage that can go one way or another? Yes. Talk it through with your tax preparer, find out where you're at. But if you're only talking to your tax person or your accountant once a year, then you're not taking advantage of stuff that they know, that if you're trying to ask them during tax season, they are generally going to give you a blow-off answer.
Right.
Because they've got 150 files that they have to work on and file. If every client asks them 150 times, how do I reduce my tax bill? You are going to get a cut and paste answer. So if you're not interacting with your tax professional outside of that
tax season, yep,
then you're doing yourself and your business a disservice. One of the things that always comes up, and I'm always amazed that people get weirded out by it, is they say, "Well, it'll cause a red flag." You're a taxpayer. You're already raising red flags. The only way that you don't really raise red flags is if you made $75,000, you paid taxes pretty much on the nose, and you got a couple of dependents, and you get back a $2,000 check from Uncle Sam and maybe a little bit from the state if you're in a state that has income tax, and everybody says, "Oh, that was great. I got money back." And I always go, no. If you got money back, that means you overpaid. And Ooh. Uncle Sam is not giving you an interest on that $2,000 that you should have had in your pocket all last year.
Interesting.
So work with your tax person first and foremost outside of tax season. That's my first trick. Secret sauce is right there, because they'll have more time to talk to you. They'll have more time to review your profit and loss statements, your assets, and then go through some of these things and say, okay, I don't think you're accurately recording, or you may be missing some expenses in this category and in this category. one overlooked category that I see for real estate, for people in the industries that we're talking to right now, is if you got kids, right? How do I get kids? Well, I don't want to do a home office deduction because that'll give red flags. I don't want to hire my kids because that'll give red flags. Well, then why have a home office and have kids? If they're not going to be helpful to the family business, I mean, let's talk about this. Your children should be a part of your business. It's your family's business. They should know how that money is made, how it is generated, the work that goes into it, the dedication and the time that is needed to make this money, so it doesn't seem like it just fell out of a tree to them. So that could mean that maybe they sweep up the construction trailer. Maybe they're out there doing some cleaning up in the yards around the houses that you're rehabbing to flip.
My favorite is using your kids on your marketing material, putting their faces on things. That's another way to hire them. Yep.
Yes. So you can hire them to be part of your marketing campaign, especially on your website where you show it's you and your partner and your young ones, and you're sitting there and you're all smiling. And then maybe one of them is like your baby boy, and he's wearing a Builder Bob outfit, and he's trying to build something with big, massive Legos. And you say something along the lines that says, a caption that says, "We're going to build it right for you." Right? Something of that nature. Get a little creative in that realm, but your kids should be a part of your business. Now, the numbers do change, but as a baseline, each child that's in the business is worth about $1,000 a month. Now, you can, because you have them either, I don't know that everybody's tax filing status, so I'm talking in general, but then in process, they can become a W-2 employee of your business, but they don't have to have taxes filed because you're going to use their wages under the threshold for a filer. Well, because they're a W-2 employee, then you can open up a Roth IRA account for them.
Yep.
You can open up a Roth IRA account for your children, and then they're like 2 years old, and they're doing, modeling stuff for you for all of your marketing stuff, and that young one now has a Roth IRA that's being started when they're 2 years old. Now they're 18 years old, and a Roth IRA has been paid in anywhere $2,000 to $6,000 a year. That's a significant amount of money and an advantage that you're giving to your child. So, I mean, as we go for each one of these deductions, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole that I can kind of go down for each one of them. But first and foremost, meet with your accountant or your tax professional outside of tax season, please. And also take advantage of home office deductions. And if you got young ones, have them be a part of the business.
And then what about, and Melissa, I got some questions for you, but I'm still picking Eric's brain here. But what about mileage and things like that? I was a former school teacher. I taught middle school for 16 years. Hence, I don't have my own children. It was the best form of birth control, teaching middle school, by the way. But I like tracking my mileage was like, what is happening? Just little things that I did not know. So you talked about the home office, mileage, cell phones. Like, what are some other things that a lot of times people are like, why aren't you claiming, or you think, why aren't you claiming this on your taxes? So anything else?
Well, okay. So in regards to mileage, there are so many ways now to electronically track business-related miles for vehicles that not doing any one of them is just, it's a loss. If you think about it, 10,000 miles in a year for a business vehicle. Even if you didn't track, you just track the mileage. If you don't track the gas and your oil changes and your maintenance and stuff like that, okay, fine. You just track the mileage. 10,000 miles is worth $5,660.
Wow.
Of a deduction. 10,000. That's less than $1,000 a month. Do you and your business drive more than $1,000 or 1,000 miles in a month? I believe so. I mean, if you're doing anything in the real estate and the construction market, you're driving from your home office to the job site to the home that you're flipping, and you do that once, twice, 3, maybe 6 times a day. Oh, I forgot this at the garage. I got to go get some more tools. I got to go get paint at one of the, supply places. I got to go get some more materials. Hold on, I'll be back. I'm driving around all day long. How often do you do that? You hit that 10,000 mark probably in the first 4 months.
Right.
So you're literally leaving thousands of deductions on the table by not accurately tracking your travel mileage. And you should be. If you're a family team working on this, you're a husband and wife team, and you are both driving, then you're leaving thousands upon thousands of dollars in deductions on the table. So track it, please. Do it for a month. See how difficult it is. If it's too difficult for you, then fine, talk to your tax preparer, because there are strategies to do what's known as spot checks, which give you a medium average of mileage for the year. I'm not a big fan of it because I like accurate numbers on a month-to-month basis, but I'll work with my clients. Reach out to your tax preparer, find out how they want you to track your miles. Use a app on your phone.
That's what I just looked up. I used to use Mile IQ. I thought that one was awesome.
Yep.
Shout out to Mile IQ. We ended up purchasing a car that we use as it's through our business. So because I'm, in this full time, so we just bought an entire car for it. So there's that aspect as well. And then you go a little bit into cell phones, but last question for you. What about travel? How does one write off travel because that trip to Jamaica where I face planted the week before and had a huge two black eyes, by the way. It was for investors. There was about 250 of us at a resort in Jamaica. We had speakers for about 4 hours during the day, but I'm planning a trip to Iceland next year it's just been on my bucket list. I'm like, I just want to go with people, but I'm not having speakers. So I'm not asking for you to give some type of loophole and everyone needs to speak to their own personal CPA. But in a situation like that, I've heard people say they do their annual minutes or something while on a trip, or can you give any insight to what is considered business travel opposed again, what is not considered business travel?
So if you plan a 7-day trip to go somewhere and you do 1 day of that as business related functions, then the travel cost, your transportation costs, is considered a business deduction. All other expenses that you would incur during that one business day are also considered deductions. So work from it from there. If you want to go on a trip and you want to try to figure out how to turn it into something that could be business related, Jen, you could make that trip and you could go to anywhere in Europe and you could bring your podcasting equipment with you and say, I am doing a podcast from here, from up on a mountain, and it is super cold, but I am still doing it here because XYZ. If you can set up a reason for justifying why it's a business related trip, then you should be working with your tax preparer or your accountant to see how much of that trip can be justified as business related.
Excellent answer. Thank you for that. And I didn't even think of doing taking my podcast equipment there. So I love that. Thank you, Eric, for that. So Melissa, we're coming back to you, sister. So a lot of my listeners are just starting their business. And what's a great checklist for bookkeeping items? Things that, what should they do as they are starting a business?
So great question. And I think let's go even bigger in that with the overall theme that I would love people to have as a takeaway is that just like anything else in life, it's all about proactive planning. It's about planning before something happens versus after something happens. And if you sit down and take a test and have done nothing to plan and have, cut a whole bunch of days that you go to that class and don't show up for that class, when you take that test, you're probably going to do pretty poorly, unless you're Eric and he just always does well in tests.
I heard that about you, Eric. I heard that you can just learn through osmosis. So
it's really not fair. But if you're like the rest of us mere mortals, you have to do some prep work ahead of time. So in the tax realm, what that looks like is talking to your tax professional throughout the year, so that at the end of the year, you've been able to have conversations like, hey, I want to go to Jamaica. How do I write off that trip? Or how can my business pay for it? And we will have those conversations with our clients. We love having those conversations with our clients. On the bookkeeping side and the record keeping side, it is very rare that I have a conversation with an investor where I say, need to hire a bookkeeper. Now, I will definitely say you should probably hire an administrative assistant or an assistant in some capacity that can help you do all of the little things that you don't like to do. I mean, there are so many studies on our productivity goes down in all areas if we do things that we're not passionate about. So fine, delegate all of those things. But when it comes to your finances and tracking things throughout the year, and this is coming from somebody who, owns a tax and accounting firm. So I'm saying you don't need to hire a bookkeeper, but you do need to make a commitment with yourself on a regular basis to reconcile your accounts. Fraud is without a question on the rise. Banks will tell you that fraud is on the rise. So even if you're not reconciling your accounts so that you can see how you're performing financially, make sure that you don't have, somebody from somewhere that's gotten into your account that has taken, we had one of our agents and one of the girls on our team, he called and he said, I feel like I don't have as much money in my accounts as I should. And what a funny question. He wasn't a bookkeeping client. I said, okay.
I feel the same way.
Right? That's what I said.
I don't have enough money in my accounts.
It feels like I don't have enough money too sometimes. Went through, she found 200, and he was a high producing realtor in Sacramento, still is. She found over $230,000 of money that had been pulled from his account. And it was very interesting because there were certain stores he would go to and there would be a charge from the store. And then there would be another charge that was really close to the account and the store name would look almost the same, but it would just be a little bit different. So pay attention to your accounts, if for nothing else, so that people aren't stealing your freaking money. That's my first thing. But if you stay on top of your accounts and what's going on through your accounts, you'll have an idea of what's going on with the cash flow of your business, what properties are making you money, maybe the properties that aren't making you money, things that you can do with those properties that aren't making you money, but your numbers don't lie. And I will say, shout out to QuickBooks Online. I think they're by far the best platform for real estate investors who want to do it themselves, to be able to go in, and if you have one property or if you have 50 properties, it is so easy to set up an account and to separate everything out by classes so that you can see the performance of your portfolio altogether, but you can also see the how your individual properties are performing. And that's kind of my passionate soapbox about that.
And this is why I married an accountant, because I hate all of that. I did truly. So I appreciate you saying, maybe you don't need a bookkeeper, but you do need to educate yourself. And a great way to do that is you just released a book called The 4-Hour Bookkeeper. And I absolutely love this because you're not saying to people, oh, you really don't need a bookkeeper, but here, let me teach you how to do it. So what is the book about? What was the inspiration to create this book?
So the book was absolutely written with investors property investors and realtors in mind. And I had even thought about, kind of putting that on there, but I thought, well, I don't want others who may want to share in my knowledge to be excluded. So the thought process is this. It's that if you do anything, what, you can eat an elephant. I hate that, but you can eat an elephant one bite at a time. So like any task, break it up into small pieces is manageable. I mean,
nice.
Let's see, when we got married a million years ago, it was really bad because my husband wanted a wedding, like a wedding, and I didn't. I wanted to marry him, but I didn't want to go through all the rigmarole of a wedding. And so I gave he and my mother-in-law, I think you guys got like 3 weeks to plan a wedding for us. And, it was just kind of okay. And she, I'm surprised she doesn't hate me still, but everything is accomplishable. I don't know if that's a word, if you break it up into small pieces, right? So this is for finances. You know what your end result is, or your end desired goal is. And what I'm saying is if you break it up into 4 1-hour time slots, appointments that you make with yourself, I'm telling you exactly what you need to do when your butt is in that chair and you're spending an hour. And when that hour is up, I even say set a timer. And when that hour is up, you move on to something else. So I believe that the reason why people, at least everybody I've met up until this point, have this avoidance towards finance is not because numbers are necessarily scary, but they sit down and they don't know what to do.
Right.
And so you spend 2 hours kind of figuring out, okay, which end is up and gathering everything. And you set yourself up in that case to fail. So this is simply a plan that tells you exactly what you need to do when your butt's in the chair and helps you to make a commitment to yourself to gain control of the finances for your business.
Well, I cannot wait to order. I just wrote it down and I'm going to dive into it, even though I'm married to an accountant and he normally does all this, so I don't have to even think about it, but it is so important. And me as a coach, I need to get better at teaching this to students. So, and we are definitely soul sisters because I gave my family, I think 4 or 5 days notice until when we got married. So
I love that.
I did not want a wedding. We just went to the courthouse. I'm like, we have 2 of everything anyway. Why are we doing this? So we are definitely soul sisters. I'm like, it was a Sunday and we got married Friday. So
nice.
I know it was really quick.
So if somebody's interested in purchasing the book, we're still in the process of figuring out, how to list it on Amazon. Apparently there's certain things I can figure out, like the tax code, but listing a book on Amazon is beyond me right now.
I got someone for you.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
I can't wait. So they can go to our website, ineedbookkeeping.com, and they can purchase a copy there. And there's some free gifts right now and goodies and giveaways that they can get along with it.
Well, when this podcast gets released, I'm sure it will be ready to go on Amazon. So definitely check it out there as well.
We'll have it figured out at that point.
Yes. I know exactly what you're going through and the getting it transformed and
oh my God.
Oh my goodness. And everything gets out of whack. And I'm like, no. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to Eric for the last question here in this first part of the podcast. And what happens in the event of an audit? Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, first and foremost, don't fear it.
Okay.
Don't operate under being afraid of, of any one particular government agency, including the IRS. Don't be afraid of an audit, because that fear is an indicator that maybe you are doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Okay, I understand some people don't want to deal with the hassle, but don't fear it. Audits happen because of one of 2 things. You either ignored a letter, never do that. If they send you a letter requesting information about one item,
Oof.
and you don't get back to them in a timely fashion, then they operate under the premise of smoke equals fire.
Good to know.
So if you ignore the letter, you're going to go from being in a letter receiving status to having someone wearing the government shirt and tie and suit jacket and slacks coming up to your door saying, "Hello, I am Mr. Johnson, I'm an auditor with the IRS. How are you? Don't ignore the letters. Answer them. You get a letter, you answer it in a timely fashion with accurate information. The IRS is going to see no smoke. I don't think there's a fire. The IRS is not in the business of losing the government money. The IRS is in the business of generating and recovering what they believe to be appropriate amounts of funds related to income tax and other items, right? That's their job. But so they're not going to go down rabbit holes just to pursue someone without there being what they feel is going to generate revenue recovery for them. Second part is in regards to don't fear the IRS, answer any letters that you get. The second part is when you do get a letter, immediately reach out to your accountant or tax preparer and ask, how do I respond to this?
Right.
Don't let it sit in the inbox for 3, 4, 5 months and then go, oh, hey, I got a second letter on this. When I hear that from clients, I almost want to drop them. I'm like, why didn't you reach out to me on the first one? I'm not hard to find. So don't be fearful of the audit, first and foremost. Second, answer the letters that they come to you. And third, if it does get into a situation where it's actually going to go into a full-blown audit, do not do it yourself. Your business, your livelihood, and your personal assets are worth more than you trying to do it by yourself. Hire a professional, get a tax lawyer, pay them their retainer, because this is an audit in regards to business-related practices. This is a business-related expense. It falls under professional fees. Hire someone to help you. I will not, I can build a house with frames, but if I was someone that didn't know how to build a house, I would not then go try with a whole bunch of 2x4s and maybe some screws. I wouldn't try building a house that way, right? You hire someone to do something. Please don't try to do it yourself in that regards. I hope I answered the question on that.
I think that is excellent advice. And before we wrap up this first part of the podcast here, you all heard me give a badassery bestowment, and I want to know, do you have a badassery bestowment that you all can share with the audience? I don't know who wants to take this one.
Eric?
Melissa?
Oh, geez. What would you try to accomplish if you knew you couldn't fail?
Ooh, me like it.
Yeah, when our oldest really made the decision that he wanted to take the leap and go into the Marine Corps after high school, somebody gave him a plaque that said that, and it now sits on my desk. It kind of when he left, it was one of the things he handed me the box that it was in, and he said, "I think this should stay on your desk while I'm gone." But it became a guiding principle really for us. And there were not so much anymore, but at the beginning of our business, there were a lot of things where it was like, okay, we're just taking the leap. I mean, and that's really what it comes down to, trust in yourself, trust that you've got this and that you've got the right, I'm going to say professionals in your corner, and take the leap. Yeah. It's pretty empowering too. It's definitely badassery.
Badassery. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. All right. We are going to move to the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes Melissa and Eric badasses. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Oh, The Art of War was one that I read when I was in high school, and I'll still look back at it every once in a while. A lot of mine are older books, but How to Win Friends and Influence People, that one was written in, I think, the 30s or the 40s.
Yes.
But it's still pretty profound and interesting. On the spirituality side of things, The Bridge Across Forever by Richard Bach. It kind of helps me to get in the right headspace when I feel overwhelmed, as you can as a business owner. Those are my three. Eric, what are some of yours?
I would say, even though it's a sci-fi book, it came out in 1985, Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I read that when I was 10 years old, and it had a significant effect in having me look at a problem from more than one direction. And that's kind of the baseline, but also, it has influenced me in a lot of ways as I grew up. Animal Farm is another one, and that got me interested in politics. That got me interested in groupthink. It got me interested in the psychology behind a group of individuals versus the individual. 3 books to go with. I would say last one, most significant, and I hate to go back to sci-fi books again, but man, I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones.
Would you say Game of Thrones?
Absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones. I read a lot of things. I read so many things in regards to like taxes and medical journals and things of that. It's stuff that is so dry that I even sometimes feel myself nodding off. That when I feel inspiration, it comes from most unusual sources. And if I look back on it, it really has been the writers in the realm of sci-fi and fantasy. While I enjoy all the fun stuff that comes along with it, their views into how we interact with each other and how one action of ours has a streamline of benefits or weal and woe going down the way. And I've always kind of looked at it from that perspective in regards to books.
Very, very cool. It's definitely a mirror image of many things that we go through. So I agree. All right. The first A in Badass is advice. You gave us some great advice. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Plan ahead, future planning. I mean, you don't have to go, and he's laughing at me, but it's true. It's plan ahead. I mean, when we have a vacation planned or an event planned, we tend to, especially having kids at home, we tend to kind of pack everything and plan everything a little bit ahead of time so that we're not, you're not surprised. I think there's always surprises that can come up. Always, always, always surprises, no doubt. But if you can help eliminate for the things that can naturally be expected, you will be so far ahead of the game from your competitors, if you will, and don't try to do a shortcut today that you think won't affect you, because it will catch up to you down the road.
So I want to break away from the acronym here for a second, because you did mention a story about someone who did not plan ahead very well. This is a friend of yours in a tax situation where they were selling a property. Can you just tell the story really quick? Because this was a little heartbreaking.
So good friend, it is heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. Good friend, longtime friend, had been a friend of Eric's for probably close to 20 years at the time. He was the type of person that was, was I guess we're considered middle-aged at this point, had at middle age accumulated kind of quite a bit of wealth, and had purchased at one point in time a commercial property, made the decision to sell the commercial property. And a sidebar to that, he was the type of person that prided himself on, cutting corners and saving money wherever possible. And I love saving money. I love helping people save money. I love that. But there are certain times when you do get what you pay for.
Right.
And he would either have, any professional, and he prided himself on this, any professional that he worked with, I swear, even like his dentist, he would do things in trade for them, right? So for tax preparers, or looking for tax preparers, he would go with whoever was going to offer him the cheapest price or or potentially do it in trade. And I'll leave it at that and kind of let Eric take over the story from there.
So he sold a commercial property in 1 year, and he didn't receive the funds until the following year. So it was during a December, end of the year kind of situation. The first tax preparer that he was working with didn't receive any of the documentation on the sale of the property. Why? Because our friend was like, well, I didn't get the money until the following year. So then when the next tax person got all the documentation, it was a new person, they looked at it and they said, well, this is all data that should have been done for last year, so I'm not going to include it in this year. So 5 years go by. IRS sends them a letter saying, hey, we have a report from getting, you have a sale of a commercial property, and state of California did a withholding of X number of dollars, which he thought for sure he was going to get some of that back. But if it never gets filed, then you never get money back. And end result, and the time frame not passed was not 5 years, it was 2 years. But by the time everything got said and done, it was 5 years out. So went through the entire process with him, and I looked at it and I said, yeah, this all should have been filed in the first year. Well, I didn't get the money until the second half. Yes, but it was recorded by the title company on December 31st. So as far as the IRS is concerned, you got your dough. So we had to go through and we had to clean it all up. And it literally, he actually ended up getting money back on this entire thing, but it took us almost 5 years after the fact to get it done. So we were 3 years processing this, answering letters, proving data. They'd send a letter asking and requesting, hey, we want to know more about this one particular item. We filled everything out. We provided the data. We sent it back by certified mail. We tracked everything for 3 years. This process ended up costing him, to get it done, ended up costing him about 8 times more than what he paid for the original filing for both of the years involved.
Well, and let's add, he didn't help himself, not only by finding the cheapest professional out there before he reached out to his friends to see if we could assist, but he ignored that first notice for 6 months, 7 months. So the biggest fight, and I think the piece that really cost him the most, was right out the gate. We had to tell him, because of all the penalties and fees. I mean, they were assessing, I think it was close to $400,000 that he owed in taxes. It was a multi-million-dollar commercial property that he sold. That right out the gate, he had to hire a tax attorney because he had to let them know that he was serious and that he was not guilty, I guess you could say. And that, just the penalties alone, I think it was close to $35,000 in penalties.
Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story. And lesson learned there is when you get that letter, just like Eric taught us to avoid an audit, you need to take care of it. And my goodness. And
even if you don't think something applies in the tax year, talk to your accountant first. Don't make assumptions.
Absolutely. Excellent advice. All right. Moving on here. And thank you for letting us sidebar there because I thought that was just a very important story. The next letter is D for drive. And I'm going to go with Eric first. Eric, what drives you to be successful?
I want to generate wealth not only for my family in the immediate, but I want to have something to pass on to my boys so that they don't necessarily have to. I want them to work as hard as me, but I want them to work from a position of strength and with a little bit of comfort rather than from my youth when I did not necessarily know if we were going to be having a mayonnaise sandwich for dinner or spaghetti. So I want them to operate with more resources going into the future. I want them to have more success. That's what drives me on 99% of everything in front of me.
Well, I think that's fantastic. And Melissa, what do you have to add to that?
I think it's easy to be driven when you absolutely love what you do. And it's funny because there are evenings when we go to bed and the two of us are truly so excited about what what lays ahead of us for the next year, having success. And this isn't to brag, although I do feel like I get to brag a little bit. We work hard. We deliver excellent service to our clients, high value to our clients. But what drives me is, being excited about what we do, being passionate about what we do, setting that example for our kids. It's actually easier to work and be successful in your own business than doing manual labor or working for somebody else. And that was always something that we wanted to show our kids, to let them know that we had that there are choices. And Eric and I grew up, we had very different backgrounds growing up. It's fun to have disposable income. It's fun to be able to enjoy things that it's fun to be able to enjoy things. And it's also really nice when an emergency comes up to be able to write a check for it and not be panicked because, this happened or that happened. So I think that's what drives us, is success and educating clients and loving what we do.
Well, I can tell you love what you do. And I love that you all have that real estate investor kind of mindset in there to guide the listeners because there's so many bookkeepers and tax people out there who don't understand real estate, and it's not a great fit. So you guys are oozing passion over this. So I just absolutely love it. I'm thrilled that you guys came on the show today to share this, because these are really, really important concepts here that a lot of us, creative people, let me put some, a waterfall countertop here and do all this creative stuff. We don't like doing the bookkeeping side of things or the tax side of things. So I love your passion and definitely feel it. So thank you for that. All right, moving on. The second A in Badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you're currently working on? And I'm going to start with Melissa.
Our initial goal was to be able to, we're pre-planners, right? We've already talked about that. And we're actually pre-planners to the point that the reason why our oldest decided to go into the military was because he wanted to go to law school. That is his goal. And he didn't want to have any student loans. And so, he knew what mom and dad would be able to set aside for school. And he knew that with that, he would have to have, for law school, at least he would have to have some student loans. And so he went into the Marine Corps to be able to accomplish that goal of not having any student loans. So that is gratifying. Goals for us, let's see, we planned, and next month we'll be replacing a bathroom that we've been waiting a very long time to replace. And, the other goal that was kind of in line for us, or the other driving force, I guess, that was kind of in line for us is Eric will be attending a rugby tournament with our youngest son in Japan in about, 2 weeks? So,
I'm leaving in 5 days, babe. Leaving in 5 days. 5 days.
So,
how exciting! They have rugby in China.
Well,
Japan.
Wow.
Yeah. So, little goals. That was a goal, and we knew that it was a potential that our son would get the invite. He's got the sports gene just like his dad, so it really wasn't a surprise that he was invited to participate, but planning for it and setting aside for it, that was a big one for us.
I love that.
So now we have to come up with some new ones.
Yes, because 5 days is going to come and go, so you'll be back.
Is.
All right, moving on here. The first S in Badass is for systems. I'm sure you all have some great systems in place. So what systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
So my thinking on systems is something that, and I wish I know whose book I read that kind of instilled this, but it's the thought of if there's a task you do, and this is so great for people who are buying properties and along this line. If there's something that you're doing and you think that there's any chance you will be doing it more than once, document your system.
Huge.
And I've tried to do that since day one. I've tried to write scripts or best practices. And at the time, it always feels like, gosh, I'm so silly. This is taking 10 times longer than it would if I just did it. But what that means is that when you do grow, first of all, you're setting your mindset for that you will have future growth. So you're already programming it into your brain. There's not a question of, will this work? Will I be successful? Telling your brain that you will be successful. And you're setting it up so that when you're ready to say, okay, I've had enough, I'm ready to delegate these things to somebody else, that you can hand it off to them and it's pretty seamless. And you then don't have to, when you're super busy, figure out how to document everything.
And I love that you're saying this because I know you're the planner. So, and the whole spin on it is the whole mindset of, we don't have the money now to pay someone to do this, but you are planting that seed in your brain. I love that you said that. I would love to hire someone to, for example, edit all my podcasts. And I was just thinking the other day, I'm like, I need to just record this and get ready for when I hire someone, because when you do hire that person, you start scaling your business, it takes that much longer to train them. So starting from the beginning, Melissa, this was just excellent idea for a system here, is to go ahead and have those created, store them, get them ready to pass. And you could send it to a virtual assistant because it's being recorded. I love that. Eric,
so
go
Jen,
ahead.
With that being your goal, I get another thing I guess I get excited about, but with that being your goal, so if you were my client and we were having that conversation, that's something that's kind of a roadblock for you, you feel like it's taking a lot of your time, I would push you to say, okay, so what is that going to cost? And get really specific. Is a virtual assistant going to work for you? Do you need to hire somebody that comes to wherever you record to do it? The answer to that is no, you don't. There's so many resources out there that it's probably less expensive than you think it is. And so let's say you figure out it's $100 an episode. Great. Find somebody to sponsor your podcast for $100.
Yep.
And hire that person.
Huge. Melissa, I love how you think. And I could talk to you guys for hours. Let's keep going.
This is a blast.
I can't wait to start listening to your podcast because you give excellent advice. And we definitely vibe the same way. I think that's awesome. Eric, do you have any systems you want to share?
More of a philosophy that kind of integrates into my business is my grandfather, World War II, Korea War, the Korean War. He was a salt of the earth, hands of iron kind of a guy. And when I was 9 and I was helping him do some blacktop patching at a high school in Northern California. And it was like 102 degrees outside and we were doing blacktop, asphalt work. And I was just like, what is this? I was not responding well to the hard work. My grandpa came by and I said, Grandpa, how do I do this better? And he said, kiss it. I'm like, what? So kiss it. And I'm like, the asphalt? And he's like, no, keep it simple, stupid. It's tough. And I'm like, what's tough? Life. And then he walked away. I was like, what? Huh? And he left me there, 9 years old, with a tamper in my hand as I'm beating blacktop and filling a hole in a parking lot, thinking about kiss it. And it just resonated, and it stuck there in the back of my mind because I can still see him. Tanned, leathery skin, jet black hair, 6'2", 215 pounds. And he's looking down at my 9-year-old self and he says, kiss it. And then I'm saying it now, and I can hear his voice saying it to me with the slight Oklahoma accent that he did his best after moving to California to eliminate, but still came out. Yes, it.
I think that is an excellent system. Thank you. That was your grandfather, you said. Thank you, grandfather, for that system that is instilled to this day. I love it. All right. To wrap up this podcast, the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to Melissa and Eric?
So that's interesting because no matter what level, and when we first got married, we were, we had to be very creative with our finances. I'll just say that. I never felt like we were poor. I never felt like we were broke, but there were certainly things that weren't options that are options now. So I think that no matter where you're at, it can always feel, if you want to allow that mindset to kind of creep in, it can always feel like you're struggling or you're worried about money or, the more money you make, the easier it is to find more expensive things to buy. But yep. I think success looks like clearly defining what it is you want. And I found, I didn't find, my mom actually said, I'm tired of keeping all of your stuff from high school. Here's a box of 20 that you need to take and go through. And I went through something that had been, I don't know, a journal or a diary that I had written. And it was crazy. This was, my, let's say 20 years ago self that had written this. And it was like, I defined the type of car I wanted. I defined the type of relationship I wanted with my spouse. I defined kind of how I wanted my relationships with my children to be. And I looked at that, and it was a day that I felt like I was really struggling. We all have those days. And I achieved all of those things.
Nice.
So I think write your goals down, super clear or as clear as you can be on what they are, so that the future you can go back and you can acknowledge yourself when you accomplish those goals.
Well, one goal that I'm going to do when we hang up here is when I'm editing this podcast, I'm going to record it. So, because now it is, in my brain now, I need to write it down and just focus on it. So I appreciate you teaching me that. So what does success mean to you, Eric?
I think success for me is, am I comfortable with how my finances are, with how my personal relationships are? Am I having a good relationship with my siblings? Am I having good relationships with my parents? Is my wife happy with me? Are my sons happy, wealthy, and becoming more wise? Those mean more to me than how many zeros I have in my bank account. Having zeros in the bank account is helpful, but I deal with a fair number of individuals that have a fair amount of wealth, and they seem miserable. And I can't stress enough that just because you have money does not necessarily mean that you are going to find comfort. You're going to find it that life is easier, but you're not necessarily going to find comfort in cash. You're going to find comfort in relationships that then can be, you can work with others down the road to generate income for yourself, to generate income for your family, to generate income for them. But you first need to have good relationships with them. You need to develop a comfortable and trusting atmosphere within your own home, and then extend that out into the world as well. Well, I know that sounds a little on the foo-foo side, but
no. And I laughed when you said how you work with people who have a lot of money. And many people think I'll be happy when, and then they are there and they are miserable people. And I do understand that. It's because money is not the answer to everyone's, So I actually completely agree with what you said there. So before we go, and it's going to be so sad to leave y'all, but and listeners, I cannot stress this enough. My opening badassery bestowment was getting the right people on your team. These people right here, Busy Bee advisors, they can guide you in the right direction, keep more money in your pocket, out of Uncle Sam's pocket, and they will talk you through things. They understand the real estate side of the business, which so many CPAs and tax advisors and bookkeepers out there don't understand. So you are a perfect fit for us. How do the listeners find you and partake in your services for Busy Bee advisors?
Oh, I want to answer. So I highly, and we're like this all the time. So don't think that we're just, extra caffeinated. In fact, I don't even think I've had coffee today. Don't just think we're extra caffeinated because we knew we were going to be on badassery to demonstrate our badassery. But we can calm down if need be. We won't scare you, I promise. To get in touch with us, we offer on both sides consultations. We don't charge for the consultations. I feel like anything related to your finances is almost like dating, and you need to find that fit. Or maybe not dating, but it's like making a new best friend. You need to find that fit for somebody that you feel that you can communicate with. And it may not be us. You won't know until you talk to us. So go to our website.
Bookkeeping.com.
Oh my gosh. He's trying to talk over me. So go to our website, busybeeadvisors.com, and schedule a consultation. That's
Perfect.
my recommendation.
You nailed it, Melissa. Very good. And the Real Buzz podcast is anywhere you listen to podcasts?
Absolutely.
Perfect. And then also, by the time this airs, the 4-Hour Bookkeeper book will be available on Amazon. I'm sure I'm going to give you my person that just did my book.
And I'll love you even more for that. Thank you.
And it was only $125. Oh, that's the best part. See, we go the cheapest route. I hope I don't turn out like the guy with the commercial property, but it has been an absolute pleasure to have you both on the show today. Thank you for the great nuggets you gave the audience members. And again, it's so important to find team members that understand you, understand your business, understand the intricacies of working with real estate investors, real estate agents, contractors, and you all have that background, and it's a different language for some. So thank you all so very much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery, and don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.